Hi, welcome to Web Authoring. My name is Owen Morgan and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. In this course, you're going to be studying the basic concepts of building web pages and websites. You're going to come out of this course with an understanding of the foundational elements of web page designs. Now remember, this is just an introductory course. You're not going to have the skills necessary to build those complex sites you see in your day-to-day access of the internet. Instead, you're going to gain an understanding of how things basically work, and hopefully this will give you a hunger to learn more and continue your studies. Since you are watching this video, I've made some assumptions here. Those are that you've already completed all of the steps in the getting started. You should have read the Read This First document, read the syllabus, downloaded the textbooks, and downloaded and installed Visual Studio Code. At the top of the course, we also have these course forums, the question and answer forum and the news and announcements forum. The use of these forums is discussed in your reading. Now we're getting ready to get into week 1. So week 1, we're going to be doing some very basic things with websites and web pages. You're going to be learning how to add headings, add some text, break that text into different lines, use some lists, add some links, and some images. Each week will have some reading associated with it. For this week, the reading comes from the HTML handbook, and there are these areas that I want you to read through this. I do include a note here that some of this may include items that just don't make any sense to you whatsoever, and that's okay. The author is very in-depth in this course and sometimes refers to things that are later within his book, so don't worry about that. I'm going to make sure that you know what you need in order to be successful during this week. Okay, after the read section, there will be a watch section, and these are videos that I'd like you to watch. Of course, you are watching this video at this point. This next one, the Getting Started with VS Code, that stands for Visual Studio Code. This video is made by another author, and it provides information on how to use Visual Studio Code when working with websites. It goes into some depth. Once again, it may be a little more than you need, but can be very helpful later in the course when you're building your own websites. The last section of the week is called the Complete section. So these are items I'd like you to complete. The first one here is a quiz. The quiz is based upon your reading for the week. For this first week, you must have completed this by Saturday, October 5th, by midnight, or I will have to drop you from the course, and unfortunately you will not be able to rejoin the course this term. So this is very imperative that you complete this if you want to stay in the course. There will also be a lab for this week. The instructions are here. I will not be going through the instructions in this video. You can read through this. Everything that you need to complete the video I will be covering in our lecture, and information also is available in your reading. The lab will be due Thursday of the following week, so you'll have more than 1 week to complete this. Okay, I've closed all of the other weeks at this time. I will only open these typically on Sunday of the week before. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with the lecture. Alright, so here we are. We're learning about HTML coding, learning about websites, web pages. So why do we even want to build a website? Well, there are quite a few reasons I imagine we have, but here are some that I've put together. So one is showcase your work. If you're an artist, artists often build portfolios, and a website can easily be put together to showcase that work. You could be someone who owns a business and you want to promote and sell your products. or maybe you just like to share your opinion with people. Get out there and post information that others can learn about and understand you. Along with your business, you could create an online store. That's one of the bigger reasons a lot of people move to the internet. You could also do something if you work for a company. You could put out information such as conference, webinars, etc. So we have an idea on what we want a website for. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we're going to have to use some tools, and one of those tools is called HTML. So we're going to have to ask ourselves, what is HTML? So this is a term. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So I'm going to look at this by each word, so we can kind of tear it apart. So hypertext refers to linking information together. Looks like I did a bad job editing this document. That should say linking. So linking information together, this means I could link different pages of information together into one website, or I could link information on one page to other pieces of information on this page. Now, markup refers to the formatting that we are applying to that information. Now, language refers to a system of rules that we've put in place on this. So now we're going to ask ourselves, language, a language. You've probably heard this term before, and you might have heard language referred to, at least in the computer world, as a programming language. Now, markup is not a programming language. This is used for formatting. So programming languages, they perform tasks, they solve problems. They focus on logic, computation, and not formatting. So if we want to move on to more formatting, that's what CSS gets us. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now, with markup language, markup talks about text and linking, where style sheets refers to the ability to actually make some very unique formatting changes to our web pages. So we'll look at this word by word. So cascading refers to the way the styles are applied to a document. Typically, the last thing that you put into your style sheet will override anything else that's put into the document. Now, style refers to how the information is displayed. And sheets, this goes back to that set of rules that define the style. Boy, I did it again. I mistyped. So with a sheet, sheets are actually a fairly old tool. They actually predate the internet quite a ways. These were used back in the publishing days when they published newspapers in the print world and also books. Alright, now we're going to start getting into the content of the course. And in order to do this, I've brought up two different tools. So I have opened Visual Studio Code on approximately one half of my screen, and I've opened a web page on the other half. I'm doing this so that I can show you how making a change in our HTML will actually affect the look of the page. Okay, so in Visual Studio Code, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to open a folder, the folder in which my website is going to be contained. So I'm going to go to the File command, and I'm going to move down to Open Folder. So in this File Explorer window, I'm going to search for my location. I've already got it predefined a little here. And I'm going to find the location where I want my website to live, and in this case I want it to live in this lecture folder, so I'll go ahead and I'll select that folder. I'm just going to click yes, I trust the authors here. So at this point, over here on the left side of the Visual Studio window, there's this pane called Explorer, and underneath that is Lecture. This is where the files are going to be contained for my website. If I click this plus button here, the new file, I can create a file in that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to name this index.html. This is kind of important here. The .html, that's the extension of the file. That is what your computer uses to understand that this is a web page. If you were to open this file, the computer would reference that .html, know to open a browser, and then load that file into the browser. Index that I put here at the beginning here, this goes back to the early days of the internet when people would go to a website. They would often not know what an internal web page name would be. So index.html became the standard or default web page that most authors would put then to their websites. In today's world, this is fairly common even today. Okay. If I pressed enter, and then that created the index.html file. So over here on the right side of the Visual Studio program, I have the window that will allow me to enter my HTML code so that I can view the web page. Now what I want to do at this point actually is I'm going to go over to our web browser and I'm going to open this web page. Now I can do this in a couple of ways. I'm going to pull over here my File Explorer window. I could double click this here and that could open it, or I could use the file browsing capability of a browser to find it for me. So I know in this case that this is in the D drive on my computer, so I'm going to press D:, and I'm going to press enter. And this will bring up a File Explorer type of window. So now I'm just going to have to find where I've placed this information. Alright, so there is, and I'll bring the File Explorer window back over here. This is the same file that I was looking at here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this. So here in my web page, or in my browser, I've opened this file. Now it's completely blank. There's absolutely nothing here. You'll notice that the tab on our web browser shows this as index.html, the name of the file that we've opened. So how do we start off the HTML code that we're going to be placing within this file? So we could type this out by hand, but Visual Studio Code gives us a shortcut to make this easier for us. So what you can do is you can create an exclamation mark and then press the tab key. So this creates what's known as the HTML boilerplate. The boilerplate is kind of the default. This is what all web pages need in order to be functional. Okay, so at this point what I want to do is I'm going to save this document. I saved this so that I could come over here into the browser, and I'm going to refresh this window, and I want you to watch what happens to the tab. So let's see, did it actually do what it was supposed to do? There we go. Finally it did it. It changes the name of the tab to document. Now why did it do that? We're going to go ahead and we're going to walk through the boilerplate, and I'll help you understand why that happened. Okay, in order to understand the boilerplate, we need to talk about some of the syntax of HTML. So HTML consists of several different elements. Actually, I used the word element, and I shouldn't have because element is one of the items. I'll just say items. So the first item that we're going to be talking about is called a tag. Now a tag is a fundamental building block. It describes the structure and content of a web page. A tag is always enclosed in angle brackets. So if we look here at line 1, you'll see a beginning angle bracket and an ending angle bracket. So this exclamation point doc type space HTML, that's a tag. Okay, an element is the next piece that we want to look at. An element is something that's both a tag and some content. I'm going to move down the boilerplate a little bit here. And we have a tag called title. So title is followed by document. Now we've seen that already. If you come back over here to the web page, you'll notice that document is now on the tab for our web page. So the tag called title actually told the web page, or told the browser to display document in the tab for that web page. Now tags consist typically of what's known as an opening tag, in this case title, and a closing tag, in this case a slash and the word title. So tags plus some content indicate an element. Most tags have a big opening and a closing tag. Some do not. If you notice here, the top of the page of our boilerplate does not have an ending tag. Okay, so the next piece is called an attribute. Now an attribute adds information to an element. So in this case, if we look down underneath the area called head, you'll see something called meta, and then car set equals. This car set equals here, this is an attribute. This is information that we are adding to the element. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about is hierarchy. Hierarchy refers to the nesting quality of elements. So nesting, kind of like Russian nesting dolls, means to place one inside of another. In this case, we have this head tag, and nested inside of it are 3 elements, and then we close up with a closing head tag. Alright, so that's the basic syntax. Let's go ahead and I will finish up talking about this boilerplate. So this top line up here, the doc type HTML, this just tells the browser what version of HTML we're using. There have been many versions of HTML throughout the history of the internet. So in this case, it's referring to this as the most current version of HTML, which in this case is HTML5. Alright, so the next tag, this just tells us what language that this page is going to be in. And in this case, EN stands for English. Okay, so the head element, this is an element that contains information that we're going to tell the browser about the document itself. This is not stuff that will be displayed within the document. Now you might say, oh, wait a minute, we've already displayed the word document within the document, but that's not true. We've actually told the browser to call the tab it opened document. So this is not actual information that we're placing there. If we move on to the meta char set, this stands for a character set. It just talks about the characters that we're using. In this case, it stands for all characters on the keyboard. This could also be emojis. This could be other characters from other languages, where French has accented characters. This next one, meta name equals viewport. This is just a way of telling the browser how to display information on different devices. If you were to display this web page on your phone or on a tablet, this can help to describe how you want the web page to be designed. In this particular case, this is telling it to display it at standard zoom level. We've already talked about the title. Notice that head has a beginning and ending, an opening and closing portion of its tag. The next part is the body. Now the body, this is where all of the content of our web page will live. So within this body, so inside of it, similar to what we have here, we will place information that will then display in the web page. So the HTML tag that we had up here has a closing tag associated with it. So this is it. This is what we would call an empty web page. This is kind of a beginning. Whew, all that preparation, but now we're ready to actually display some information on our web page. So let's go ahead and we're going to go into the body tag and we're going to add some content in here. Now there are many different tags available within the HTML standard. And the most basic one we're going to start with here is called the paragraph tag. And what you do here is you actually are going to type out an opening angle bracket, and then we're going to put a P to indicate paragraph. Now you'll notice that we get this pop-up down below. This is the Visual Studio Code program trying to help us. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And actually it didn't do what I wanted it to do. Let's try that again. Yeah, it's not doing what I wanted it to, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to close this. There we go. That's what I wanted. So what this did was, after I created the opening tag portion of the tag, it actually created the closing portion for me. Okay, so now I have a tag. To make this an element, I need to add some content to this. So in this case, let's just add some content. I'm going to call this web page is dedicated to my dogs. Okay. So I'll come back over here and I'm going to save this. I'll go back over to my browser, I'll refresh, and now it's displaying the content that I typed earlier. This is it. So this is the beginning. We've displayed our first content on here. We can add multiple paragraphs. So I'll add another here. I really love my dogs. And let's add even another. Don't love dogs too. So I've got 3 paragraphs now. I'll go ahead and I'm going to save this again, but actually I'm going to show you something I've already set up. So I've turned on a feature called autosave. So this makes it a little easier, so I don't actually have to come in here and save every time. So I'm actually not going to save this. I'm just going to come on back over to the web page, and I'm going to refresh it, and we get the cursor in there. Come on. Why aren't you? Alright, not sure why it's not working. There we go. I've got a little pop-up in the way on my side, so I can't quite click the refresh button. Okay, so now I've got my 3 paragraphs of text displayed. We're going to go on to another tag, and this is called the break tag. A break tag operates similar to like a carriage return or a line break within a document. So what I'm going to do here is within the paragraph tag itself, I'm actually going to go after the word dedicated, and I am going to type the tag. It's a BR tag. That means break. You'll notice it did not create a closing tag because there's not a need for this in this particular case. If I come back over here and do a refresh, you'll notice that it actually took the content after the BR and it moved it down to the next line. Now you notice it didn't put a space between them because this is considered just the next line, not the beginning of a new paragraph. Okay, the next tag that we're going to look at are called heading tags. Now heading tags are used to place titles onto your page. So if I look back at my body here, I'll notice that this first paragraph I created, it's really a title. So I should probably change this. So I'm going to go ahead and take the P there, and I'm instead going to make this an H. In this case, I'm going to make it a heading. There are 6 levels of headings. H1 is the top level, or the highest precedence level. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to change that. And I also have to change the ending tag here as well. H1. So I have a beginning or opening tag and an ending tag. So let me come back over here and refresh. You'll notice now that the text here, it is much larger, it stands out a lot more than the text below because this is my heading. Now if I wanted to do a second heading underneath this, let's just say that break there was supposed to be my secondary heading. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take this text out, put in a new tag, the H2 tag, and paste that. I'm going to take the line break out. We don't really need that. Alright, so come back over here. So now I've got the highest level of precedence and a slightly smaller one underneath this. Now we should be able to notice how when I changed these to headings, it changed the look of the text. In this case, it seemed to make it bold and like a larger font. Well, we can do these types of things with text itself within a paragraph tag. So for instance, if I wanted to take the word really here and I wanted to make that stand out a little, I could add a bold tag to that. So a bold tag is a B. Now one thing you do notice with IntelliSense, it will actually turn on and add opening and closing tags, sometimes not necessarily where you want them, so you may have to delete them yourself. Okay, so now I have a paragraph tag, and inside of this I have another tag. So in reality I have an element nested within an element. Now if I come back over here and I do this, you'll notice that it really now stands out. There are other types of text level elements that I can use. I can use an italic symbol. So let's go ahead and I'm going to surround love with an italic, in this case an I symbol. Oops. Oops, I did it wrong. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh this. So now I have a bolded really and an italics love. There are two other ways to do a bold and an italic. So instead of bold, I could have used the word strong here. And instead of I could have used an EM, which stands for emphasize. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to refresh the page over here. And you should notice that there is no difference in the look of the page. The difference here comes when you are using other types of readers, maybe an accessible reader for somebody with vision problems or other issues, or if you're wanting to make some of your text stand out, possibly to a search engine. You might want to make it seem indicate that it's more important, so that it may bring that information to the top of a search result. Now, text is cool and all, but come on, we want some images. Let's get some images on this web page. So let's go ahead and do that. So before we actually add an image to the web page, we need an image. So luckily, I already have an image here, and I am going to put that image into my web, or into my folder. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move the file folder over here. So I've got this image of a chihuahua. So I'm going to copy this. There's my copy. Go into my lecture folder and I'll paste that. So it's important that you put your content in the same folder. It just makes it easier for the browser to find the information that you are referencing within your HTML code. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'll put this back over here. Okay, putting an image into your document is a little more complicated. So in this case, let's walk through this step by step. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the image below my last paragraph of text here. And the tag that we use here is called an IMG tag. Now, you'll notice something here. I'm not putting a closing bracket here because I actually have some information, an element that I need to add to this. Excuse me, an attribute that I need to add to this. There's actually two attributes. The first one is called the alt. Alt stands for alternative text. This is what would display to someone who cannot see images on a web page. So in this case, I'll put alt and then you have to put an equal sign behind it to tell the browser what it is that you want to display. You'll notice that Visual Studio Code placed two quotation marks already because the information needs to be in quotation marks. So I'm going to go ahead and type what this is. This is a picture of a cute chihuahua. Alright, so that's the first part of this tag. The next part is where is the picture. So I have to tell it the source. In this case, the attribute is called src, and then equals. So here I need the name of that file. So let me go ahead and pull the file browser back over here. So this is called chihuahua.png. Now you notice I didn't spell this with a capital C like the name is. In this particular case, it's not important. It will find it regardless. Pull that out of the way. Alright, now I can do my closing bracket. Now this is a tag that does not have an opening and closing. This is all it needs in order for it to work. So let me go ahead and refresh my page here, and there we go. We got a picture of our Chihuahua. Okay, so we've got a picture now. Now you may notice that the picture is maybe fairly large, maybe a little too big, maybe too small. Now you can add other attributes to this tag that can adjust the size of this image on the page so it displays differently. But the actual physical size on the computer may not or will not be any different. So that's kind of important. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring back over this File Explorer window, and I want to show you that Chihuahua picture is actually 161 kilobytes. So that may be big comparatively to other pictures that are being displayed on the internet. We may want to change the size of this. So a way for us to do that would be to open this in a tool that allows us to change the size. That's what I'm going to do. Is in Windows there's a tool called Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open that and bring it over here. That will allow me to adjust the size of this. So I'm going to take the Chihuahua picture and bring it here. So here in this tool I can make some changes here. I'm going to click on the image option and then go to resize. Now here I can change it by percentages or pixels. I'll just do it by percentage. I'm going to make this 75%. So I'm going to make it 25% smaller. So I've made this image smaller. Let me go ahead and I'll save that image. So if I come back to my File Explorer, you'll notice I've cut the size down considerably. Now if I go back to my web page and refresh it, you'll notice that the image has adjusted accordingly. Now at this point you might be going, whoa, and wait a minute, I'm using a Mac, I'm using a Linux system. I'm not quite following what you're doing. Well, let's tell you there are ways to do this. It's very similar in the other tools. I'm going to be conducting this course in Windows. So if you have a different computer, you will need to be able to have the ability to adjust your style. You can always contact me and I can help as best as I can if you're having some trouble. Alright, let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is links. So a link is a method of connecting different pieces of information together. In this case, we're going to be first looking at how do I connect my web page to another web page that someone else has built. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. So below image, I'm going to add a link here. A link tag starts with an A. So I can get this to do it right. An A. It has an attribute within it called href. Stands for a hypertext reference. And as with any attribute, we have to have an equals on it. Now we have to tell it where to go to. So in this particular case, I'm going to have this go to the American Kennel Club. So I'm going to type the web page for the American Kennel Club. In this case, it's http science : 2 backslashes akc.org. Nope, looking back at this, I realized I made a mistake. It's not 2 backslashes, it's 2 forward slashes. Okay, so let's come back over to here. I need to close up this tag. Oops. Close up the tag. So the first portion, the opening tag, it's telling us this is the place where we would like to link to. The content inside of here is what will display on the page and will be the link that you click on. So I'm just going to put American Kennel Club here. And it has its closing tag, so we have everything we need. Let's go ahead and we'll refresh this. Alright, so you'll notice that we now have a link to the American Kennel Club added to our page. If I click on this, it will open the American Kennel Club. I'm going to press the back key to move backwards. Now you notice that American Kennel Club actually appeared to the right of the image rather than flowing below it as we normally would expect. This is due to a feature in HTML called inline elements. I'm not going to go into this very deeply right now. I'm just going to say that in order to make this move down to the following line, what we're going to do is we're just going to add and you might guess this, a break line tag to this. Let's go ahead and we'll refresh this so this moves it below it. And this looks better. Alright, now we're going to create another web page as part of our website. So let's just go ahead and do that. So up here under the Explorer, I'll click the new file. And this does not need to be named index. This could be named whatever we want. So I'm just going to call it page2.html. And I'll press enter. Now you'll notice here I actually have 2 tabs available now. One is my index and one is my page 2. So for our page 2 we need the same boilerplate. Just press the exclamation and then press tab. So this will place our information that we need here. So where it says document here, I'm going to change this and I'm just going to call it page 2. So now let's go to the body and I'll just put a heading h1 tag. And we'll call this is my second web page. Okay. So this is saved. So let's go back to the index. Now we want to make a reference to that page here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use an A tag. H-reference equals. In this case, we're going to actually give it the name of the web page as that attribute. And this I'm just going to say click to go to my next page. Alright, so let's go ahead and refresh this. You'll notice once again it put it on the same line. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're at it. I'm just going to put another line break in here. Alright, so if I click here, this will open up my second web page, which happens to be here. Alright, so now we have a website. We have multiple pages that are linked together. So if you're proud of yourself, stand up, pat yourself on the back, do whatever makes you happy, and then get back to work here. We're almost done though. Okay, on the second web page, we're going to add some more information. Next tags we're going to be talking about are lists. So lists are groups of information. There are two types of list. We're going to go ahead and start off with the first type, which is called an ordered list. So this tag is an OL tag. So an ordered list is, like I said, a group of information. So this consists of two different types of tags. So the first tag for the ordered list is OL. Now I'm going to move the closing tag down to another line so that we can put the second tag in here. This is a LI, or list item, so an item within the list. So I'm just going to put in here item 1. We'll do another list item, item 2, and I'm just going to continue with one more, item 3. Okay, so we've got an opening tag for the ordered list, and a closing tag, and then we have 3 additional tags within this for each of the 3 items. If I come back over and refresh my web page, you'll notice that there are 3 items, just like you would see in a normal list. They have numbers in front of them, 1, 2, and 3. Ordered lists always have numbers in front of them. The next kind of list is called an unordered list. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this information here, make life a little easier on me. And I'm going to paste it here. Instead of an OL here, I'll change that to a UL, opening and closing. And then I will refresh. So we have the same information, but one is an ordered list, one is an unordered list. So unordered lists are identified by the dot in front of them. Okay, the last item for this lecture is going to be about adding notes to your HTML content. If you're taking notes for a class, you often do it in your own notebook, or maybe you do it in the margins of books, etc. But in programming, you need to be able to put those notes along with the coding that you're writing. So in this case, there is a tag that allows us to do this within HTML, and it's known as a comment tag. So now comments can go anywhere you want, because they do not display on the web page itself. They just provide information to the person who is going to be doing the development. So if you were to create something that seems maybe a little bit complicated, people may not be able to understand that, you may want to add a comment. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to be putting in a comment about who we are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up into the head in this case, but like I said, these could go anywhere. So we started off with the opening bracket. We use an exclamation point, a single exclamation point, and then 2 periods. And then you press space. Yeah, sorry about this. I made a slight error here. It wasn't periods, it's dashes. There we go. So that created the closing dash dash that we needed for this. So I'm going to put a comment in here, and I'm just going to put me. I'm going to say web page created by Owen Morgan on 9/29 9/29/24. Alright, now if I come back over to my page and I refresh it here, you notice nothing changes over here. This is just here for our reference and to help us or possibly someone else who comes along. Okay, that's it. That's it for for this week's lecture. You can go ahead and continue through with the work for the week. Go ahead and read through the lab. Do what you can to do your best on it. Feel free to contact me by email or put a note in the forum, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.